Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishnu
Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopika Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta
Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari
Vishwabha
Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Manchakalpatarubhyascha Patitanam
Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Namo Namaha Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita
Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Rama 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 Hare Hare. 11th chapter, in case you forgot, and it's text number 53. Everybody have their books? So you can repeat after me. Naham Vedaina Tapasa
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Nadanena Nachejaya
Nadanena Chejaya
Shakyevam Vido Drastum
Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtam
Dristavan Asimam Yata
Drishtavan Asimam Yatha
Naham Vedaina Tapasa
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Nadanena Nachejaya
Nadanena Chejaya
Shakyevam Vido Drastum
Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtam
Dristavan Asimam Yata
Drishtavan Asimam Yatha
Naham Vedaina Tapasa
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Nadanena Nachejaya
Nadanena Chejaya
Sakyevam Vido Drastum
Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtam
Dristavan Asimam Yata
Drishtavan Asimam Yatha
Chant.
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Naham
Naham Vedairna Tapasa Nadane Nachadaya Nadane Nachadaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Sakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drashtavan Asimam Yatha Drashtavan Asimam Yatha Naham Vedairna Tapasa Naham Vedairna Tapasa Nadane Nachejaya Nadane Nachejaya Sakya Evam Vidho Drashtam Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtam Drishtavan Asimam Yatha Drishtavan Asimam Yatha
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Nadanena Nachejaya
Nadane Nachejaya
Sakya Evam Vidho Drashtum
Shakya Evam Vidho Drishtam
Drishtavanasi Mam Yatha
Drishtavan Asimam Yatha
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Naham Vedairna Tapasa
Nadanena Nachejaya
Nadanena Nachejaya Sakya Evam Vidho Drishtam Drishtavan Asimam Yatha.
Anyone else? Nah.
Na.
Never.
Never. Never.
Aham.
Aham.
I. They die.
Vedai.
By study of the Vedas.
By
By
study
of the Vedas.
Na.
Na.
Never.
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 Tapasa.
Tapasa.
By serious penances.
By serious penances.
Na.
Na.
Never.
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 Danena,
Danena.
Danena.
by charity.
By
By
charity.
charity.
Na,
Na.
Na.
never.
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 Cha,
Cha.
Cha.
also.
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 Ijaya,
Ijaya.
Ijaya.
by worship.
By
By
worship.
Shakyaha,
Shakyaha.
Shakyaha.
it is possible.
It is possible.
Possible.
Evam vida,
Evam with
Evam Vida.
like this.
like
Like
this.
this.
Drastum,
Drashtu.
to see.
To
To
see.
see.
Dristavan,
Drishtavan.
seeing.
Seeing.
Asi,
Asi.
you are.
You
You
are.
are.
Mam,
Ma.
me.
Me.
Yata,
Yatha.
Yatha.
as.
As.
Translation. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Purport. Krishna first appeared before his parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, in a four-handed form, and then he transformed himself into the two-handed form. This mystery is very difficult to understand for those who are atheists or who are devoid of devotional service. For scholars who have simply studied Vedic literature by way of grammatical knowledge or mere academic qualifications, Krishna is not possible to understand, nor is he to be understood by persons who officially go to the temple to offer worship. They make their visit, but they cannot understand Krishna as he is. Krishna can be understood only through the path of devotional service, as explained by Krishna himself in the next verse. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nivase Sasanyavari Pastachade Satarane Naham Vedayana Tapasa Nadani Nana Chejaya Sakyevam Vido Drastum Dristavan Asimam Yata. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. So, in the end of the purport, it explains that in the next verse, it explains how you can see him basically by bhakti, by love and devotion is the only way you can see him. So here is almost like a negative way. It's not by this, not by that, not by this that you can see him. So then what is it? What is it I have to do to see him? And then the next verse you find out. But it's interesting by studying the Vedas. This is the first thing. You think that if I study the Vedic literatures, I can actually understand who God is and my relationship with God. Now, studying the Vedas itself, you'll never come to that conclusion. But if you study the Vedas and you have some bhakti, then you can come to that understanding and you can see the Lord. But just studying the Vedas academically, that you can get a PhD in Sanskrit at Harvard, which I know some devotees have. They've studied the Vedas, but because they're also devotees, they can actually come to the point of seeing Krishna. But studying the Vedas in itself is just really useless waste of time unless you go further. I'll give an example. Someone studying the Vedas, they're a big scholar, but they still drink, they eat meat, they do so much nonsense. They smoke their pipes, sit in their armchair, and they think they're so intelligent, but they don't know anything. They can't know Krishna. They can't really know the purport. Vedaischa savaya hameva vedyo Vedanta krit Veda Videva chaham. Indeed, I'm the compiler of the Vedas and know of the Vedas. And ultimately, all the Vedas, by studying the Vedas, you can know me. But not just by studying the Vedas. You actually have to have a little bit bhakti, a little love and devotion, a little humility. This has to be there. But studying the Vedas is generally a good thing to do. But I remember distributing books at colleges, and I met one guy who studied the Vedas, and he said the Vedas are just a bunch of, sacrifice, the karma kanda stuff he was explaining. You do this, you get that, you do this, you get that, and even, if you really study the Vedas, it might be difficult to come to Krishna because of what Vyasadeva did. His guru, Narada Muni, said, in one sense, you did a disservice because you wrote all these different things and you didn't sufficiently broadcast the glories of the Lord. You didn't tell very much about the actual spiritual science. You told about material sciences really well. You got all that down. It's like, but you need to talk about the spiritual science. Otherwise, it really is a waste of time. Just mental gymnastics. It's interesting. It's fun. You can argue it, but it doesn't help you in any way to come to know God. In the next life, you're a dog. What's the use? So you can't come to see this form or understand this form or know Krishna at all just by studying the Vedas. Nor by undergoing serious penances. I mean, we can think of serious penances. We can think of Hiranyakashipu. He did some serious penances, standing on the tip of his toes for 125 years. Ants eating his body away, his flesh. The soul was in the bones. He was still alive in his bones. I don't know how many people have gotten bit by these red ants, but they're really, one little bite really hurts. And it's only a little tiny ant. Imagine having hundreds of them or thousands of them eating away all your flesh. That's a great penance, but he didn't have any bhakti. So he did get killed by the Lord, so that was nice. But he didn't understand the Lord by his penance. When people perform penances, they may fast for months, or they may not talk for years. They may do different types of penances. It's useless. What's the use? I mean, Prabhupada says, somebody produces a little gold. I can buy some gold. What's so good about that? Or someone lives for 500 years. You say you could become a tree. You could live for thousands of years. What's the value of these things? They have no real value. It's a nice magic trick, but it doesn't have any value, and it doesn't help you, the person who has these powers, to obtain Krishna. Mystic powers you can get from performing austerities and penances, but you can't come to know Krishna by performing penances. So this is also a waste of time. But if you're performing penances, austerities, it's called tapasya, voluntarily performing austerities to attain Krishna, to obtain something better. That's wanted. That's called tapasya, not performing austerities for some mundane thing. I mean, the karmis perform a lot of austerities. I mean, just, of course, now they may not be performing as many, because like, I'm just thinking of going to work and you have this traffic jams and you do that every single day. That's a great austerity. I can't even do it one day. It's just too much for me. Of course, now they don't do that. They either don't work or they work from home. But there are other austerities. Now the austerity working from home is you got to be with your family the whole time. Great austerity for a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, after this quarantine is over, there's predicting there's going to be a lot of divorces because people living too close together is an austerity. So there are so many austerities, but if you're just doing austerities, not the simple ones I just mentioned about the family and quarantine, that's not such a great austerity. But fasting is a good austerity. But if you're fasting for some mundane reason, like Mahatma Gandhi did, what's the use of it? It doesn't help him to see Krishna. But if you're fasting to try to make some, to minimize the demands of the body, because you're not this body, and you want to use that time for understanding Krishna, then that's very good austerities or penances. And charity. People giving charity to so many things. If they're giving charity to Krishna, then they're benefited. Then that by that charity to Krishna, that's bhakti, or even unknowing devotional service. Gyata sukriti. They don't even know they're doing it, and they're doing it, and they're making spiritual advancement by doing it. So that's also very good. But if they're given in charity to try to come up with some cure or vaccine for this coronavirus, that's good, but it's not enough to come to understand Krishna. It has to be more than that. I know, I heard Bill Gates gave $10 million to this one company to create a vaccine. I mean, that's nice. And even Krishna says, actually it's the next chapter, that if you, to think of me always, if you can't do that, then follow the regulated principles and serve those devotees, who are thinking of me always, or serve the devotees. And if you can't serve the devotees, then give in charity. If you can give in charity to the devotees. If you can't give it to the devotees, then give in charity to some other good cause, because that helps you become a little detached, and maybe that will help you to come to Krishna. It's not a guarantee that if you give in charity, you'll come to Krishna, but to give the fruits of your labor to any good cause is a good thing to do. And in it, Prabhupada explains, because I remember when I read it, why give charity to something else? Why don't you give it to Krishna? And Prabhupada explains how sometimes your family members may be upset if you give it to Krishna. So you give it to something else then, but just give it. So, so charity can lead to bhakti. Studying the Vedas can lead to bhakti. Performing penances can lead to bhakti. But if it doesn't lead to bhakti, it's really a waste of time. It's just, if it doesn't ultimately lead to bhakti, it's a complete waste of time. And you can't see Krishna and you can't know Krishna. The bhakti has to be there. So we, of course, are trying to engage in bhakti yoga ourselves and trying to engage others in bhakti yoga, even if they don't know it. Just like on Sankirtan, if you're out trying to sell a book and somebody doesn't even want a book, but they'll give you a donation and they don't even know for sure what it's for. They don't know much or anything about Krishna consciousness. But if they give, then that's also bhakti. That's the beginning. It's called a gyata sukriti, unknowing devotional service. People can do devotional service without knowing, just like some your devotees are crossing the street and somebody stops the traffic or something because there's a lot of devotees. I mean, I don't know, just giving some example, but that's devotional service. They do something. Even Lord Chaitanya, he sat down at where they washed the feet when he went to see Prakasananda Saraswati. And it's kind of like a dirty place. It's not for sannyasi to be sitting. So Prakasananda offered Lord Chaitanya's hand and lifted Lord Chaitanya up. And Lord Chaitanya sat there just so that can happen, so he can engage in devotional service, Agyata Sukriti, not even knowing, but he's helping the Lord up. That's bhakti. So even if somebody knows it or doesn't know it, it doesn't matter. They still get the benefit. Just like a drug, if you have some medicine you take and you don't know how it works, or somebody's giving you the medicine and you don't even know it, you can get better. Or if they're giving you some drug and to get you get intoxicated, you didn't know anything, but you can't help it, you still get intoxicated. So just like these drugs work, whether you believe it or not, bhakti, knowingly or unknowingly, works whether you believe it or not. So we have to try to engage ourselves and engage others so that their lives can be a success, even if they do something. Even if they like the chanting, they heard it, they like the dancing, they like the enthusiasm of the devotees, they benefit. And if they get a book, Prabhupada said, if they just read one word, they benefit. And that's not a material benefit, that's a spiritual benefit Srila Prabhupada is talking about. Srila Prabhupada only talked about the spiritual benefits. He didn't talk about mundane benefits. So we have to try to come to that platform. And we can hear and chant about Krishna. We hear the Vedas. But we hear the spiritual part of the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the different Upanishads, different parts of the Vedas. But ultimately, we're interested in trying to develop our Krishna consciousness. So that is bhakti. Anyone have any questions or comments? Is anybody listening? No comments or questions?
We do listen to you, Pyari Prabhu, but
Okay.
no questions. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you for listening. Okay, I didn't want to go to the next verse, but I don't have anything else to say about that verse. I'm not going to finish the next verse. Who, Ganapati Govind, do you do it tomorrow's class?
Tomorrow is not Bhagavad Gita, right?
No, well, the next.
Yeah, Monday I am giving, Prabhuji.
And also, what happens at 7 at night on Sunday?
We
Repeat it.
have no class on Sunday 7.
Okay, as everybody here, what do you think about having the class on Sunday night too?
Sunday we have our 4 to 5 p.m. regular Sunday program, Prabhuji. That is what happens on Sunday, 4 to 5 p.m.
No, I know, but I mean, people don't have. They can go to one, they can go to the other, they can go to both. I mean, why not? I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm not going to give the class, but if there's, we can have the rotating people or something. But anyway, that's just an opinion. It just seems simpler that it's 7 days a week, 7 to 8.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea.
And people don't have to feel they have to attend. But if you want to attend, that way you have that opportunity. Especially if you can't come 5 or something, then you come at 7. Anyway, that's something we can think about and possibly implement that. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Can we do some Vaishnava bhajan for Sundays or something else?
Can we do Vaishnava bhajans?
7 to 8 Sunday?
Oh, instead of Bhagavad Gita class.
Okay, you said Bhagavad Gita. Okay, I missed it. When you said, I think voice break up for me.
For I think for bhajans it will be more like a solo performance, because on phone we won't be able to follow nicely, right? So
You can't, it's one person leading and everyone chanting at home by themselves. You can't hear them chanting. It really, even just today with the Om Jnana Timirandasya, if everybody chants at a different time. Maybe you're not chanting at a different time, but it comes out to be a different time.
Yeah, it not to be in the sync actually. Chant, actually doing the bhajans together
Yeah,
online.
that's not so easy to do. We're gonna do RT, but we're gonna have, one person leading with their family. So then their family responds and everyone else responds at their own house, but at least you're hearing other people responding. But that's just the one family. Anyway, we
Maybe
have to figure it out. What?
maybe Sundays we can do quiz on the entire week, whatever we discuss, we can do a quiz.
Yeah, quiz is good. If somebody can put that together.
Questions and answers.
Yeah, questions and
Yes, that's a
answers.
good idea.
That's a really good idea, but who's gonna get it together? That's more work.
Ganpati Govind Prabhu.
Yeah, because he suggested it.
He gave the idea too.
Yeah, that'll be really good. That becomes fun. You have questions and answers. You can have teams too.
Yeah, teams is a good idea.
And then prizes too, Prabhuji.
And then what?
Prizes as well. You will give the prizes.
Yeah, prize would be you get to donate $1,000 to the temple.
Well, the prizes will show you some sweets you could have had. If we could hand them through the computer, but we'll just take them ourselves, but we can thank you for them. Yeah, so I don't think we'll be doing prizes. But yeah, that sounds good. Then Sunday is, we're talking about Bhagavad Gita, right? Question.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, of the week's classes.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a lot. Okay.
All these Bhakti Shastris will already know all the answers.
What?
All these Bhakti Shastris will know the answers.
Well, you could have different questions. Gee, I was thinking all the Bhakti Shastris will know the answers. But Ganapati Govind, we can talk before so that I can know the answers.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're giving the next class, right, Ganapati Govind?
Yes, Prabhuji, on Monday.
Okay, it's a very long purport. So what I'm thinking is I can give, just read up to the first, the first paragraph, which is long. And then
Okay.
there's a quote from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. And I don't know if I'll read that quote or not read the quote, but then what you can do is you can start the verse, you can chant the verse, you can read the English translation, and then you can start from where I left off in the purport. Because it's,
Yes, I think that's a good
too
idea.
much to do for one day,
Okay.
especially for you,
Yeah.
because you got one little paragraph and you can talk about it for 3 hours. So, okay, so we'll go a little bit more and read this. So we're going to chant it now, but just one time. And then I'm not going to do the word for word, but you'll do that when you give the next class. Okay. Bhaktya tvananya ya shakya.
Bhaktya tu ananya shakya.
Aham evam vidojana.
Aham evam vido Arjuna.
Yatum drastum cha tatvena.
Jatum drashtum chatatena.
Praveshtum cha parantapa.
Pravashtum cha parantapa.
My dear Arjun, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So in the previous verse, he explains at least 3 ways that you might think you can know Krishna, but you can't. And then in this verse, he says only by devotional service. Purport. Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He explicitly explains this in this verse so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand Bhagavad Gita by the speculative process will know that they are simply wasting their time. Of course, people may still speculate and say whatever they want to say and even translate this verse differently. But Prabhupada is very nice because he gives every single word what it is, so that people can see why it's saying, my dear Arjun, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So Krishna makes it difficult for anyone to change the Bhagavad Gita from something else other than bhakti. But people try to do that. Impersonalists try to do that. Even materialists try to do that for some particular goal that they have in mind. Even Prabhupada says that if you have like some particular thing that you want to say, don't use Bhagavad Gita to say it. Because Bhagavad Gita is a very famous book. So if Bhagavad Gita says that this is the way we should all be, then people will follow. He said, don't use, just write your own book. It's not what Bhagavad Gita says, because people, I think Mahatma Gandhi was saying how it means like a peace treaties, which I don't see how, because he's just telling them to fight. But somehow or other he sees this, that the Pandavas were actually not real persons. They're our five senses. It's like, where do they get this from? You know, that's why it's really nice. Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is it. Not Bhagavad Gita as I translate it or as I misinterpret it. Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He explicitly explains this in this verse, so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand Bhagavad Gita by the speculative process will know that they are simply wasting their time. No one can understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a four-handed form and at once changed himself into a two-handed form. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. I mean, how did he do that? You know, I mean, you can say, well, their parents were like delusional. They just had a baby and they didn't see that it's two hands, but they somehow saw four hands. They also saw a helmet. They saw bangles and they saw jewelry and they saw a full head of hair. It's like they were really, you know, they were in a prison. They didn't have any source of some kind of drugs that'll put them in illusion. And okay, let's just say that happened. Then how did the guards fall asleep? The locks open and Vasudev carries him. How did that all happen? It's just all I mean, I guess they just have to say the whole thing is just made up story, a fictional story. But if it's a fictional story, why are you writing about it, trying to get some message across? I don't understand how they can interpret it, misinterpret it. As it is, we accept things literally, almost everything. There is like at least one chapter in the Bhagavatam that is metaphors or to understand something else, but in general, everything is accepted literally. So these things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that no one can see him or enter into understanding of these matters. enter into understanding of these matters. Like you enter into something. When you enter into something, you don't become that something. You enter into a house, you don't become that house. You enter into some city, you don't become the city. You enter into understanding these topics of Krishna, you don't become Krishna. Those who, however, are very experienced students of Vedic literature can learn about him from the Vedic literature in so many ways. So those who, however, are very experienced students or sincere students can learn about him from the Vedic literature in so many ways. There are so many rules and regulations, and if one at all wants to understand Krishna, he must follow the regulative principles described in the authoritative literature. This is really important because just studying the Vedas, but there's rules you have to follow. You have to follow certain things. Just by studying it ain't going to be enough. You have to apply it to your life. You have to do what it says. Then you get the realization. So one can perform penance in accordance with those principles, the principles to understand Krishna, following these rules and regulations. Even in the beginning of this movement, there were no rules and regulations. Prabhupada would give a class, philosophical class, as simple as he could for these Westerners who knew nothing about Krishna. I never heard the word Krishna until the Hare Krishna devotees came. Never heard it. I was like 22 years old before I heard Krishna. And nobody knew Krishna, not just me, nobody. And then everybody knows just by, oh, there's the Hare Krishnas. So the devotees, they asked Prabhupada, are there any rules to follow? So they actually, Prabhupada got them to the point of wanting to go further, wanting to, follow certain rules if there was, so they can make more progress. And they voluntarily wanted to. Although they thought it was going to be like impossible to follow them, but they did. For example, to undergo serious penances, one may observe fasting on Janmashtami, the day on which Krishna appeared, and on the 2 days of Ekadasi, the 11th day after the new moon and the 11th day after the full moon. It's nice that Prabhupada, or at least it's nice that I said what Prabhupada is saying, that one of the penances is fasting. Prabhupada generally talks about fasting when he talks about penances. But here it's saying, for example, to undergo serious penances, one may observe fasting on Janmashtami. To me, that's not such a serious penance. It's like not that hard to do. But because you're doing it for Krishna, it's a serious penance. And on Ekadasi, we're supposed to minimize the demands of the body and think more of Govinda, Krishna. So if we do that, that's a serious penance. The day after the new moon and the 11th day after the full moon. As far as charity, so that's, even Prabhupada's so kind, he's not giving us some real severe penance. He's not telling us to fast for a week or a month or, every Ekadasi. Even the fasting on Ekadasi, he said you can just at least fast from grains and beans and peas. It's not so hard to do that. And I know even one time when it was a fast day and Prabhupada ate fruit, and the devotee, his servant, mentioned that today is such and such a day, we're supposed to fast. He said, eating fruit is fasting. So you can do that too. Although generally we don't, like on Janmashtami, we wouldn't eat fruit. But some devotees have to eat something because of their bodies. As far as charity is concerned, It is plain that charity should be given to the devotees of Krishna who are engaged in his devotional service to spread the Krishna philosophy or Krishna consciousness throughout the world. As far as charity is concerned, it is plain that charity should be given. It's plain. It's like, that's the simple thing. You just give charity to the devotees. You give charity to the temple. You give charity to spreading Krishna consciousness. That's plain. Doesn't say even how much charity. Just give what you can. Krishna consciousness is a benediction to humanity. Even Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada points out that this is the greatest welfare activity. You know, if you look at all the welfare, you look at this welfare to stop this virus. We all want this virus to stop. I don't know anybody that wants it to continue. But at the same time, say we give all our charity to that. What good is it going to do? So less people get sick and less people die sooner. They're going to die anyway. Well, how does it help anything? Then they die, and then the next life they're a rat or a cat or a dog or a hog or a camel or an ass. So what is the value of saving them from dying now and dying later? How did that save them? But if you can help them so that in the next life they could take at least a human birth and continue their Krishna consciousness, then that's helping them. Otherwise, what is the value of your helping them? It really has no value. Even food, giving them food, we would give food to people if they're starving, but we would give prasadam, because not only are their hunger is getting satisfied, but spiritually they are making some progress, whether they know it or not. People who eat prasadam don't have to know that eating prasadam is spiritual and they're making advancement. If you know, you make even more advancement. You can relish it more, seeing it from Krishna. But at the same time, even if you don't know, you're still making spiritual progress. So that way you can help people both ways. But if you don't help people spiritually, helping them materially is like blowing on a boil. I've had boils. When I first became a devotee, I got some boils. I never had them before. And they told me that the boils are a devotee disease. It's like, because it's really, really painful, but it's not really that harmful. It doesn't really hurt you. You know, your whole, doesn't hurt the body so much, but it's painful and you get rid of a lot of karma. So, but boils hurt. And if you blow on it, it feels better. But what does that help? Temporarily, you blow on it, it feels better. It's still there. The pain is still there. It's just going to come again a little bit later. That's all. So you have to actually, there's ways to cut it open and get the pus out. And there's different techniques, different devotees have done. And I'm not sure what the doctors do. They probably just cut it open. But a boil, giving it some temporary relief doesn't really help the person who has the boil. And any problems we have materially, if you just give somebody some temporary material relief, it doesn't help them. They actually had an experiment once where they found somebody who would donate towards this experiment. The experiment was they find a homeless person who is not taking drugs or alcohol. He's just somehow misfortunate, and he has an education. He's not crazy. He's sane. So they find such a person, and they give him $100,000. And after they give him $100,000, they also give him opportunities to take different courses to to learn about how to invest the money or learn this or that, anything. I don't remember the courses. But anyway, after several months, that man who just got $100,000 was back on the streets again. So what good did it do him getting this money? It's a nice gesture. You're helping this poor guy out. He bought a car for like $25,000 to give to his friend. He's a nice guy. I wish I knew him. We could have had some money for the temple. But the point is pretty clear that he's got his karma and it's going to go back anyway. The only way to get rid of this karma is by taking the Krishna consciousness. And the only way that people can take the Krishna consciousness, if we as devotees try to engage them by giving them one of Prabhupada's books, by telling them about Krishna. That's the real service we have to do. So that's Krishna consciousness. So that's charity. It's to give to devotee, give to something else. It's pretty much a waste. It's still beneficial. You get some little pious activity, but not anything spiritual. Krishna consciousness is a benediction to humanity. Lord Chaitanya was appreciated by Rupa Goswami as the most munificent man of charity because love of Krishna. The most munificent man of charity because love of Krishna, which is very difficult to achieve, was distributed freely by him. So that's, if you want to really give charity, you give Krishna consciousness. And you make them pay for it. And then they get more Krishna consciousness for them, more benefit. I remember one devotee, his name is Grani. He was coming to the Boston temple and devotees gave him books and so many people did so much for him when he came, because he was a really nice devotee. And he told me later on, I was the only devotee who gave him a book and asked him for a donation. And he said he actually wanted to give, but nobody ever asked him. So don't get too shy, ask people. Because it's for their benefit. The more they give to Krishna, the more they are benefited. So if you want to help them, just try to get them to give as much as they can. So if one gives some amount of his money to persons involved in distributing Krishna consciousness, that charity given to spread Krishna consciousness is the greatest charity in the world. So we have to try to get people, even if they give anything, if they don't want to give anything, give a quarter, give something, they're benefited eternally, whatever they give. And if one worships as prescribed in the temple, in the temples in India, there is always some statue, usually of Vishnu or Krishna. That is a chance to progress by offering worship and respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So of course, Prabhupada saying, go to the temple, worship at the temple. For the beginners in devotional service to the Lord, temple worship is essential. And this is confirmed in the Vedic literature, Sveta Svatara Upanishads. I guess I have to read this. Yasya deve parabhaktiya yata deve tata guru tasyaite katitahi artha prakashante mahatmanaha. One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord and is directed by the spiritual master in whom he has similar unflinching faith, can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revelation. One cannot understand Krishna by mental speculation. For one who does not take personal training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, it is impossible to even begin to understand Krishna. The word "to" is specifically used here to indicate that no other process can be used, can be recommended, or can be successful in understanding Krishna. So two things: unflinching faith and devotion in your spiritual master and in Krishna. That's it. And then Krishna will reveal himself to you. Just like he revealed himself to Arjuna after first he showed him his universal form. He will reveal himself to you in different ways. Maybe not standing in front of you, maybe standing in front of you, but he will definitely reveal himself and you will know that that's Krishna, and your faith will become even stronger. So that you have to have faith. You have to start with faith. If you don't have faith, you can't go any further. Prabhupada talks about like people who join this movement, but they don't go anywhere because they don't have faith. It says like a wedding party. They're going, a group was going to a wedding. They all get in the boat and they row and row and row, but they have the anchor out. It's like if we have an anchor in this material world, we don't go anywhere. We have to take up that anchor. When we take up that anchor, then we can start moving in spiritual life. So some people join this movement with their anchor still out and they never bring in the anchor. So don't be one of those. Bring in that anchor and start moving. Get a motor. Don't have to row. Okay. So this is a very famous verse that Prabhupada is quoting here from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Okay, anyone have any questions? I'm not going to be reading anymore, so you can remember where I'm up to.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, how are you?
Good too. How are you? Why did Krishna make it so difficult to understand him?
It's not so difficult. I don't think it's so difficult.
Well, what I mean is like, when you read about like Krishna Lila, so many things raises so many questions. I mean, I don't want to give you specific examples.
Well, you have an inquisitive mind. Questions in the beginning, questions are good. They're if you just accept everything blindly, that's not very good. You have to first understand. Your questions have to be answered. Questions are a sign of intelligence. So to have questions is good. But when your questions are answered, you ultimately have to come to a point where you no longer have any doubts. Just like, for instance, when you question, there's some doubt. Something doesn't make sense. So you have some doubt. So you ask. And then when you get a good logical answer, then you accept, yes, that makes sense. And you keep doing that. Somebody's making a lot of noise here. Okay, so then you can accept that whatever it is, when your doubts are when you don't have any more doubts by getting your questions answered, then after a while, it's not that you don't have any questions, but you don't have any doubts at all about Krishna consciousness. You accept Krishna just as he says. But I may not understand this. This doesn't seem to make sense to me. But it's not that is wrong, but I don't understand it. That's all. But I know Krishna is God. I accept Krishna as God, and I have to understand it somehow and we can even speculate on trying to understand it, but understanding it, knowing what the conclusions are. The conclusions are God. So I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of questions. I always have a lot of questions. Not so much on Krishna consciousness, but on anything. I remember when I took some classes years ago, and my teachers thought I was just trying to stall the class because I had a lot of questions. But it was just had questions. It just, this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Clear it up. Teacher wasn't a very good teacher, that teacher. Another teacher I had answered every single question. It was really good. Because this was later. I was already a devotee at this time. I took some classes. Previously, being a devotee and I took classes, I didn't have any interest in learning anything, so I didn't really have much questions. But I needed, anyway. So questions are good up to a point, then you should be no more questions. Not no more questions, but no more doubts. I just don't understand this, but I accept it.
I don't have any doubt, Prabhu, but just like, some of the, like a pastime, I just think like it's too complicated. Why does it have to be so complicated?
What's so, give an example, because I don't know what's so complicated.
Okay, I'm giving you one example. Like say Krishna's relationship with Radharani. We know Radharani and Krishna is one soul, but I mean, materially speaking, Radharani was the wife of Krishna's uncle. I mean, why does it have to be that way? It doesn't look good, like, I mean, it's like...
Radharani is only with Krishna. The other is just an idea, conception. There is no relationship. It's just, and the idea of that is because the mood is there that Radharani has a husband. There's that mood, but she doesn't have a husband. But the mood is there because that is how much she loves Krishna. That even if she has a husband, because to have a husband and to go with another man is the most abominable thing. Prabhupada points that out. He says that what's in the material world, the lowest, in the spiritual world is the highest when you're doing it for Krishna. So to renounce even a husband and go with Krishna, that proves her love is the most intense. But she doesn't have a husband. The relationship is not there.
I understand, Prabhu. Thank you.
I mean, and these topics of Radha and Krishna come up in the 10th canto. So you have to first read the 9 cantos and study them before you come to any of this. And that's for a reason. So you don't misunderstand it when you come to the 10th canto. You already know Krishna's position. And Prabhupada's Bhagavatam is so wonderful because of the purports, because he explains everything. So you don't misunderstand it.
Right, Prabhu.
Anyway, you can ask questions. It's good. You can write, well, don't write me an email. Call me on the phone. Write me an email. I'm never going to answer you. But you can call me when you have a question and we can talk about it.
Understand, Prabhu. Thank you. But I'm just saying, like, for a lot of beginners, it might like discourage them. And a lot of people, you will see like...
Say that again?
Like a lot of people who are new to like, new about Krishna, they get a bad perception. And you will see a lot of people like making movies, fun.
We're not going to be telling them about Radharani has a husband and she's going with Krishna. These are such advanced topics. Why would you be telling a new person this? A new person, we tell them you're not that body.
I understood, Prabhu. My only question was like, why did Krishna make it so difficult? Why couldn't he make it simple so that everybody can understand without question? But I understood, Prabhu. Thank you.
Why did he make it difficult? Got an answer?
Prabhupada said it's simple for the simple.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Jiva just said in Prabhupada, quoted Prabhupada said, it's simple for the simple. And he said it's difficult for the complicated.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Maybe I'm a complicated guy.
You're too complicated.
Yes, Prabhu.
That Radharani's husband is an expansion of Krishna's shadow.
Oh, Jiva said Radharani's husband is an expansion of Krishna's shadow.
Yes, Prabhu.
That makes it simple.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? The time is up.
Prabhuji, just to add on Prabhuji's question, just one line. Krishna is the enjoyer of everyone. So if we understand that position, then I think we'll not have the question of Krishna enjoying with Radharani.
He's the supreme enjoyer, right? And we enjoy in relationship to giving him enjoyment. If we can give Krishna enjoyment, we enjoy. Anyway, there's questions, but you should ask them. Better you ask than you just think about it. Okay, any other comments or questions? All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's all for our obeisances to the Vaishnavas. Panchakalpa.
Kalpatarubhishya kipasindhya bhaya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vishnu namo namo.